During yesterday's hearing of the case in Fulchester Crown Court, where Margaret Turson is pleading not guilty to offences under the Official Secrets Act, there were dramatic scenes when she was cross-examined by prosecuting counsel Jonathan Fry, QC. Counsel for the defence, James Elliott, QC, called Miss Turson as his first witness when she said she had fallen in love with a young East German, Hans Müller, sharply denying the allegation that he was a spy who made her acquaintance merely to extract information from her. Fry queried her opinions about Müller, and under intense questioning about the nature of her friendship with him, Miss Turson broke down. Shortly afterwards, Mr. Justice Waddington adjourned the court. It is now 10:36 the following day, and Miss Turson is still in the witness box.
Call Margaret Turson.
Remember, you are still on oath, Miss Turson.
Miss Turson, in reply to prosecution's questions yesterday, you said you were sure that Hans Müller was not interested in the information you possess as a result of your work in the Foreign Office.
Yes.
That you fell in love with him and he with you.
Yes.
And that the prosecutor's version, that of your infatuation with someone who paid attention to you in order to secure information, is not true.
No, it's not true.
You also referred to your decision to think of your personal life before your career after a long and dedicated service.
Yes, but that decision didn't affect my judgment.
No. Taking this last point, were you thinking of resigning from the diplomatic service before you came due to retire?
Not actively, no, but I'd known for some time that I wasn't likely to get much further up the ladder, and perhaps that affected my attitude.
Had you reported your friendship with Hans Müller and been told, because of his communist background, to choose between the man and your career, would you have agreed to leave your job?
Yes. After we came back from holiday in September, I would have preferred to resign.
But before?
Earlier, I wasn't sure.
So you didn't report your friendship for fear of losing your job over something you did not then see as having a future?
Yes.
But it was worth breaking the regulations because you wanted to find out if there was to be a future with this person?
Yes.
Looking back on the events of the last few months, Miss Turson, is there anything in your conduct you regret?
No. Nothing.
It has been said you could have avoided the charges you now face by not taking classified papers home on an evening you intended to entertain Hans Müller.
I know that taking the papers home with me looks like pure stupidity. But by the time Hans began to visit my flat, I trusted him. I knew he wasn't a spy. To have gone on taking precautions in case he still might be would have seemed to me to be cheap and dishonest.
So you don't regret not having taken these precautions despite the trouble you made for yourself by not doing so?
No, I do not. You
do not regard the safety of the papers as ever having been endangered?
No, I do not.
Thank you, my lord, unless you wished.
Miss Turson, would it be correct to say that you had reached a stage in your career where you were looking for an excuse to end it?
No, my lord.
Had you not met Herr Müller?
Well, I would have gone on working. I can't think of anything else I could have done.
Yes, I see. Thank you very much. You will now take the accused back to the dock.
Call Mrs. Helga Warren, please.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Would you state your name and occupation, please?
Helga Warren. I'm a psychotherapist, also a housewife and mother.
And you live at 7 Christchurch Hill, Fulchester?
Yes, I do.
Do you know Miss Turson?
Very well.
For how long?
We met in Germany about 10 years ago.
And you now live in England, is that right?
I became married to an Englishman, yes.
Do you know a man called Hans Müller?
Yes.
Well?
No. Hans' parents and my parents used to be neighbors in Berlin before the wall was built.
Did you invite him to a party that you gave in April of this year?
Yes.
And did Miss Turson also attend?
She did.
And did you introduce her to Hans Müller?
Yes. I think I introduced everybody to each other.
Quite. Mrs. Warren, weren't you worried for Miss Turson's sake that you were in fact introducing her to someone from a communist state, knowing as that you did that she was a senior member of the diplomatic service?
Of course not.
Why not?
Margaret is quite capable to look after herself.
In August of this year, were you and your husband with Hans Muller and Miss Turson on holiday in Greece?
Yes, we were.
And did Miss Turson confide in you her thoughts of Hans Muller?
Yes. She was in love with him, and he was also in love with her. I was most pleased. Margaret deserved to find happiness. I think she found it with Hans.
So you approved of the match?
Very much.
Do you not think it odd that Miss Turson should make herself susceptible to official reprimand by her association with a communist?
She told me Hans said he wasn't a communist. I believed her. He struck me as an honest man who would not tell a lie.
Whilst on holiday, were you acquainted with their talk of marriage?
Margaret told me Hans had proposed they should marry one day. Yes, and they discussed it with us one evening.
Any specific date?
No, I don't think so. Just one day.
And you approved?
My husband and I were very happy for both of them. We liked Hans. He made Margaret laugh. He made all of us laugh. He was generous and kind.
Did you ever have any reason, Mrs. Warren, from what you observed of Hans Muller, to suspect the genuineness of his friendship towards Miss Turson?
Never. Even if he had an ulterior motive, he would have failed. No one had a higher sense of duty to her country and to her work than Margaret.
One last question, Mrs. Warren. Did Hans Muller speak any English?
No.
Thank you. Would you remain there, please?
Mrs. Warren, you were close friends with Miss Turson.
Yes.
Were you single when you first came to England?
I was, yes.
Must be quite an advantage to know someone in public service.
I do not follow.
Well, to do various favours to avoid the worst excesses of red tape as you settle down over here.
I came here to work. I had a job. I became married. I didn't need Margaret as a way to get me any of those things.
I see. You were pleased when you heard Miss Turson was to be married?
Of course.
Because you wished her to be happy.
Well, naturally.
Did you speak much to Herr Muller about his private political views?
No.
No, but as a fellow German, one from a rival German republic, you must have formed some idea of his political beliefs.
I'm not a political person. I like people or I dislike people. Their politics have nothing to do with it.
And you liked Herr Muller?
Yes.
Because he made Miss Turson happy?
I have said so.
You say also you're not a political person, communist, right-wing, radical, conservative. It doesn't matter to you when you decide to like or dislike someone.
No, it doesn't matter.
And you like Hans Muller?
Again, yes.
I know this sounds repetitive, Mrs. Warren, but bear with me.
Yes, very well.
You see, you are here to help defense counsel convince the jury that Miss Turson was carrying on a sincere and reciprocated love affair with a man who, although representing a state run by a communist regime, was himself not a communist.
Which I believe.
Oh, indeed you do. But I suggest, Mrs. Warren, from listening to your remarks, your lack of interest in politics, your desire to see Miss Turson happy, that had she fallen in love with Mao Zedong, you would have seen nothing wrong with it.
There's nothing wrong with falling in love.
No, Mrs. Warren, there's nothing wrong with falling in love. Except, as in this case, where many other people, many other interested parties can be made to suffer as a result.
I do not understand.
No, Mrs. Warren, because you believe, do you not, that love is all. More important than the risk of disclosing state secrets to a man whose country would benefit by learning them.
I can only speak my beliefs.
Thank you, Mrs. Warren.
Thank you, Mrs. Warren. I have no questions. You may leave the witness box.
Mr. Godfrey Heinrich Muller, please.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Would you tell the court your name and address, please?
Gottfried Heinrich Müller, Stuttgart 18, Wilhelmstraße 62.
And that's West Germany.
Yes.
And you're related to Hans Muller.
I am his brother.
And he lives and works in East Germany.
Yes.
For the government.
Yes, civil service.
Would you describe to the court, please, how it came to be that you moved into West Germany while your brother Hans stayed in the Democratic Republic, the communist side?
Well, what Hans Muller may have said to his brother on other occasions is hearsay, and in my submission, inadmissible.
It is perhaps hearsay, Mr. Fry, but I think that any statement explaining Hans Miller's beliefs or emotions or even relevant actions are admissible under an exception to the hearsay rule. You may answer the question, Mr. Miller.
Thank you. After we left school, we both went to the university in Leipzig That's the East Zone. I became architect and I gained permission to live in the West. Hans is economist, civil service. He was offered a job as a government.
How long ago was that?
About 6 years. Jobs were hard to find then, so Hans accepted.
Is it necessary to be a communist to do what Hans did?
Well, if you are a fascist, it is more difficult to find a job.
Yes, I can see that.
Hans became a member of the Communist Party and they gave him work. They need economists and Hans is a good one. So he said he was a good Marxist-Leninist and they believed him.
Did he ever join a communist party while you were studying together at Leipzig?
No.
Why not?
2 reasons. In the Youth Communist Party in Leipzig, all the men were boring and all the girls ugly.
When did you last see Hans, Mr. Muller?
Oh, this morning.
Where?
In Stuttgart.
Where in Stuttgart?
In my flat.
Has your brother visited East Germany since he left England?
I can say definitely not. Hans has been staying with me all this time. He waits for Margaret.
Thank you, Mr. Muller.
Herr Muller, you say your brother has left his job and his country and has come to your flat to wait for the accused.
Yes.
Why is he not here today in this courtroom, giving evidence like you?
I have come for him.
Hans is a grown man. The authorities would have given him permission to enter this country again if he wished, to attend this trial. Why is he hiding behind his elder brother?
He's not hiding behind me. Hans is hiding behind no one.
I repeat, why is he not here today?
He's afraid.
Afraid? Of what?
He's afraid of the authorities.
Which, his or ours?
Here.
Afraid of the British authorities?
They think he's a spy. He's afraid of arrest.
Oh, come on, Herr Muller. The authorities didn't arrest your brother when they detained Miss Turson. Why should they do so now?
He does not trust authorities. They put Margaret in prison, and she is not a spy. So he prefers to stay safe and wait.
Stay safe?
Yes.
Is that the action of a man deeply in love, Herr Muller?
I cannot allow that, Mr. Lotterby.
My lord. You come to plead for whom, Herr Muller, your brother or Miss Turson?
Oh, for both of them. The police have made a mistake. They're not spies.
If Hans were a spy, would you?
Oh, I know. Hans.
You haven't seen your brother for much these last 6 years, have you?
No, but...
No? So he might be all the prosecution here is claiming him to be. You'd be none the wiser, would you?
No, he's my brother.
But a stranger for 6 years.
Hans and I are close. We know each other. We are a close family. You must not say we are strangers.
I'm merely suggesting that you haven't...
You are a fool.
Muller, there's no need to get so upset. I'm merely asking you a few simple questions.
You are suggesting I lie. I love my brother. The stupid police interfere. They arrest Margaret, they call Hans a spy, and the idiots. He is in love with Margaret. What do they know about it?
Please keep your temper, Mr. Miller. You will not impress either myself or the jury by raising your voice.
Now, he must not say these things.
I said very little, Herr Muller. I'm merely suggesting that you do not know, cannot be expected to know everything about a brother whom you've hardly seen for the last 6 years. That's all. Oh, one more question, Herr Muller. Is it possible your brother has learnt English during the last 6 years?
Possible.
Yes or no, please?
Yes.